Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma. Today's topic is the need to be right. Welcome to the Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma, bringing you ancient wisdom for modern day success so that you can sparkle just a little bit brighter each and every day. If what you hear speaks to your soul, go ahead and give us a rating and a review in iTunes. You can also find us on SoundCloud and Stitcher. And hey, if there's somebody in your life that you think would enjoy this podcast, go ahead and share it with them. Well, hey there, Nick. What's going on?
Hey there, Kisma. How are you today?
I am awesome.
Awesome. What's going on? Well, another day podcasting. I'm excited.
You are always excited to podcast.
I like the podcast. I'm having a lot of fun. We've got mantra snacks.
Mantra snacks. Tell our listeners a little bit about the snack.
We started putting out mantra snacks. So the idea was we wanted to do longer podcasts and really dive into it and engage people with their questions, because I think that's like a really important part of this whole process. But at the same time, I just like there's a lot of little things I think that kind of get missed. And so like there's another piece out there for when you don't have the time to put into a podcast or to whatever, to just get yourself that little something for the day, like just a something for your brain to chew on that, is there for you, something to consider, that, a good thought for your day. And so we decided, instead of deciding, we decided to do both.
I love that.
So for the mantra snacks, the intention is really just a little something for you to put out there. So we just pop them right up into the feed, the podcast feed. We don't do like separate posts or anything like that. Like they'll just appear in your feed. So that's the best reason ever to just go subscribe, because then you'll make sure that they actually upload into your, into your device, like however you listen to this. Get your headphones on. Maybe you're listening on your mobile. I know I listen to podcasts on my phone all the time, especially when I'm driving. So it's always cool, for me to not have to go and to re-download. If you just subscribe, then they'll just pop right up in there, and then you'll always have them. So that's, go subscribe, and then you'll have them, and you can check them out and let us know what you think.
Yep, they're 10 minutes tops.
Yeah, right around 10 minutes tops. Yeah,
cool.
Little something for us to talk about. That's all.
Yeah, we usually do them in the car.
Yeah, we do, actually.
Yeah.
A little different. Yeah.
Little different side of us, everyone, if you haven't heard it. So anyways, today.
The need to be right.
Oh.
Go.
Okay.
Tell me.
Well,
tell me all about it.
It was my boat to talk about the need to be right. And as usual, at one point this morning or yesterday morning, I had this download of, wow, I wonder how many opportunities, how many gifts, how many connections I missed out on because I had the need to be right. And we're going to go layers deep into this, because there are many, many, many different layers of the need to be right. And I'm not here to drudge up the past and be like, oh, Kisma, you blew it. Really, the past is only for learning. And this is a great thing to ponder and to learn and to make, as I always say, that meticulous decision to observe where your thoughts, actions, and beliefs are moving forward.
It sounds exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the need to be right is kind of a big topic. Like, if you could put it into just like layman's terms, like what is the need to be right?
You're digging in your heels and missing out on so much.
Because why? Because your mind is closed?
The mind has this fascinating quality of attaching itself to a belief. And when we go really deep in these processes in our trainings or our retreats, we go into the subconscious soul level of that belief. But for now, if you even look at the analytical mind, it creates through thought and through words and through actions, habits and character, right? So we've all heard this, as you think, so you become. This is truth. As you think, you are creating, you are manifesting, you're positioning these patterns of your behavior, of your personality, and soon enough you have a character. So the mind attaches to that because it's very comfortable being in that place. So when something presents itself that might be out of the norm or not in alignment with what we're usually thinking, we might turn our back to it and stay in the need to be right. Well, it has to be this way. Or I feel this, so I must be right.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. So what does this do to a human being?
It does several things, and it really depends on, I believe, the sensitivity of the human, whether that human is interested in elevating, expanding their consciousness and their awareness, or they simply don't care. So if you just take someone who's stubborn and digging in their heels, they may go lifetimes not noticing they have the need to be right, and sadly live in a very basic form, only we call it the 3D, this world, just your physical, your emotional, your mental energy bodies. That's it. You're just going to live in that and not really access your heart in higher dimensions. Now, on another scope, like I can share my own experience, and I think this is why it's obviously at the surface for me. This past week, I was looking into creating some new webinars, some new trainings, and just off the cusp of doing a really intensive training on soulcology, which is science of the soul. And I love talking about the soul. The soul is fascinating to me, the different elements of our existence, of our field, and all of that. So I'm dialing in some language, and I share it in one of our mastermind groups. And there are some really smart people in that group. And obviously, when you have smart people around you, you want to listen to them, right?
And that's kind of the idea.
That's kind of the idea of being in a mastermind. Well, this really smart guy, smart marketer, said, people don't want to have this conversation. They don't want to talk about the soul. It feels unsafe. It feels like work. It feels heavy. They want little tricks and tips just to fix them. And then later you can go deeper. And I was like, you know what? He makes sense. Like it was a great argument. He's had great success. So I went back and I changed around the formulation of copy, what I was going to teach. And you know what happened is like I started to experience pain and exhaustion. It's like, my body hurt, my mind hurt. I was getting ringing in my ears, like my higher self is yelling at me, no, don't do this. And I mean, you were with me. You saw me like for 2 days, kind of like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, I did notice that. And
what was it like from the outside watching me?
Well, I just kind of saw you kind of going into your own space. Like I could see you were really thinking. And I know that when like Kisma's in that mode, I just kind of give you space because you're creative, you're focused, you don't want to be interrupted. And I totally respect that, or I try to respect that anyway. But then, like the kind of like tension, I could just like sense some frustration around that. And, I felt a little bad, like what's up, like what's going on.
Yeah.
So,
and you were actually the one, because I was like, you said to me, it's going to be okay. And I'm like, actually, it's not going to be okay. If I keep going like this, it is not going to be okay. So because Nick is such a great coach, mentor, you put your coaching hat on and you asked me a question.
Let's be super clear that you asked me to put my
I did
coaching hat
ask you.
on.
Yeah, we usually don't do this in our relationship.
Yeah,
I was like,
if you guys are coaches out there, like don't coach one another, like unless very specific, and then for very, very specific things.
Yeah, smart.
It works better that way. Well, here, like, you kind of bring up a really interesting component of this. This is a sticky topic. And when your mind got into, actually, it's not going to be okay. It'll be like, like it won't change. It won't be okay. That's kind of like another need to be right.
For sure.
Right? A need to be right that this is the way it's always going to be, which is oftentimes where the mind goes when it gets into a state of discomfort.
Right. Well, I'm stuck here and it's always going to be. So that was one example. I had the need to be right, that I was not going to come out of this.
Right. Like that this is just the way that you're going to be. Like, and if you look at the dynamic of your life, like clearly that is not logical. But when you're in that moment and your mind has control like that, and it's kind of digging into that space of, nope, this is the way it's going to be. Like that's kind of what the mind does.
Exactly.
Right. So that's where, gaining a little objective perspective to that and kind of seeing what happened is really important.
And
so you can see like layers and layers.
Totally. And to back up a layer, the reason I was frustrated is for 48 hours, I had the need to be right that someone else knew better than I did what I should be doing.
Yeah. And I think that's the crux of it.
That was it.
But if you could always turn that one around and said, now that you need to be right, that your idea is right.
It's endless. It's a bottomless pit.
It is. It's really, really sticky to sort through it.
The line is so fine.
Yeah. And this is, this is why we have mentors. That's why it's so important to us is like, because one, it's just not gonna be good for our relationship to have that in there all the time, to be trying to like fix one another and help one another. Like I want to help you, but I also want you to have your own space. And, so somebody with a truly objective perspective that truly does not attach to that can help you sort through some of these layers of it.
Right.
But hopefully, I guess if we walk away with nothing else from this podcast, it would be that this is a really sticky issue and you can trip yourself up at every turn and you just have to be really mindful. Like you're not careful, but just mindful.
Right. However, there's a way to find that resolution.
Do tell.
Well, you asked me a question. What was that question where I went, oh, right.
I remember the first question is like, what happened? Like where did this
happened?
start?
So I dialed it back to, I think it started here, being excited about creating something, being excited about talking about the soul, being excited about doing readings and clearings and all of that. And then I allowed someone else's voice to take over. Now this is me, right? He's smart. He knows what he's doing, but I let him into my mind and listened a little bit too deeply.
Took it personally?
No, it wasn't. It was just, I just assumed he's going to know better, so I should do this. So what happens is when I followed his suggestion, I went against my soul energy.
Yes. Yeah, you did do that.
That's what happened. That's where it becomes painful, everyone. When you're going against your soul energy, because my soul energy is divine self-expression, divine wisdom. There's two. Well, I'm not going to be the person that focuses on a morning routine hack. That's not me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I get it. Totally. And I know just from experience with you that when you feel like your voice is not being heard or suppressed, it's like, it's really it's agitating.
Yeah. It's kind of the thing when you have divine self-expression, you often feel like you're not heard.
Yeah. So
most likely while I'm talking right now. So
which is funny because like really at the end of the day, you just listen to yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you remember what the second question was?
No, I totally don't.
Where did I stop?
Yes, that was the second question.
That was
a good question. I am good.
Excellent question, everyone. Yeah. You can use this endless times. Where did I stop? And basically at some point in the whole creative process, I stopped listening to my higher self. And I stopped creating upon the direction of my higher self.
Yeah. Yep. You stopped. That's one need to be right.
That was a big need to be right. So I think that's why I started to, when I came out of it, it was like an instant, like, as if something crystallized around me and just broke and fell off. And I was like, I'm back. This is awesome. I'm going to talk about soul for the next like 2 or 3 months. And I love it because when people identify their soul energy, it makes their businesses better. It makes their families happier, the whole thing. So this whole thing, it just made me realize like, wow, how many times do I suffer from the need to be right? And where else in my life have I really felt uncomfortable for an extended period of time or agitated or clueless or upset or angry? I mean, the list goes on.
Yeah. It's basically being stuck in a perception.
Stuck in a belief. So for those of you listening, you can ask, just reflect, like, what is a belief you've had about your own life, about someone in your life, about where the direction of your life is going that you're so tied to, you're so attached to, it really is a need to be right. And because of that, you're eliminating some amazing opportunities, right? Because we want to bust out of the box that society puts us in. We do not want to be in that base program, the dark matrix of you got to be like this, you got to look like this, you got to think like this, you got to eat. Forget it. Like bust out of that, get out of that and see. It's like opening up, the Avatar movie. All of a sudden you're going to see like something amazing around you that you may have not seen before because of that need to be right, that things are just going to be the way they are.
Yeah, it's really just being open,
Super receptive.
as Jocko would say, to free your mind.
Jocko,
right? But
from the Jocko podcast.
From the Jocko podcast. But that's one way to look at it. But really, it's just like being open. Like, and it shows up on all the layers. Like, it'll show up in every layer, in every area of your life.
Relationships.
Think about, like, we're both musicians. So we come from the musician and artist background, and how the need to be right. Well, one, around like artistry, like my way is the way, when you get the diva type personalities, there's a lot of need to be right in those.
Yeah.
But another one is around money, where it's like the need to be right that I'm going to be broke to do work that I love.
Oh.
If you have that need to be right, you can be sure that you will struggle around money.
And you'll end up not loving what you're doing because it'll be so frustrating.
Yeah, because it's like, I give my heart and my soul, like total victimization. I'm giving it's not victim, it's more like martyr energy. I'm giving my heart and my soul to my art, and it's okay if I'm just poor and destitute because my soul will thrive on that. Like,
no, your soul will be depleted on that as well as the rest of you.
Yeah, you just get depleted. Like, having money is important.
Well, think about also the means of being creative. So when I flash back to my music days, I can find another need to be right, which was, in order for me to sound really good, I had to spend an entire hour warming up. I had to do scales, I had to do thirds, and I had to do arpeggios.
Yep. That's a good one.
It's great to do scales, it's great to do thirds, it's great to do arpeggios. However, do I have to do those to sound good? Like, what if, and so anybody who's a performer out there, take that out. Like, do that because it gives you great facility and it makes you unconsciously competent, but don't attach that to, you need to do that to sound good. Just freaking sound good anyways, and then master your skill.
Well, it's how I see that, and I totally agree, because in the brass world, like the trumpet, like we were big on our routines, like daily routine, and trumpet is like a big deal. And so you get locked into it. But I just remember my teacher always telling me, like, dude, you never know when you're going to show up to the gig, or you're going to get stuck in traffic and you got instead of getting 20 minutes to warm up, you get 2.
Right.
Or 20 seconds, and I've actually definitely had that happen as well. Not one of my prouder moments, but it's really important. So what happens, I think, is the mind kind of craves that security. It craves that certainty.
Right.
And so it knows that if it can do this thing, and if it does this thing, that then it's going to get a specific result, which by and large is accurate. However, when you become dependent on that, now you're stuck in a perception, right? You're stuck in a perspective that says, if I don't do this thing, I won't be able to sound good.
Exactly.
Right. So it might be that, it might be a routine that you do in your day to set the stage for your day. I personally feel that a sense of ritual around that is important. But if you can't have a good day without that, that's really something to look at. Like, if you have to do 2 hours of meditation in order to have a good day, you should probably stop meditating.
Or if you have to do 2 hours of meditation to get a direct download from the higher self, there's something else to be clear. Like, it doesn't, I love whatever anybody's practice ritual is, but don't put this limiting belief that you have to do this in order to get that. Do what you do, again, to be unconsciously competent and to evolve.
Yeah. You see it I totally agree. Like, it's really just staying flexible and creative.
Yes.
Like, the need to be right is the opposite end of the spectrum of true creativity. Like, where you're just absolutely in the flow and absolutely clear. I think, was it Bruce Lee that said this? Like, be like water, just flow, right?
Max flex.
Or the best way. And I think another one of his is the best way is no way.
Yeah.
Right. Or was that him, or is that somebody else?
It sounds like him.
He could have said that, but maybe it was somebody else. But at the end of the day, it's so important to, like, the best way is no way. He's saying study. He was big on practice and discipline. Like, he did not get the skills that he had by just being like, I'm just going to do whatever I want. Like, he was extremely disciplined, but he was also incredibly creative within that process. Like, that's what took him to the level of mastery.
Exactly.
And when you're stuck in the need to be right, that my way is the way, this is totally it, and not open to the other things around you, well, you can be sure that you're going to wind up stuck somewhere around the way. Like somewhere or another, that's going to give you a smackdown that's not going to feel good.
Exactly.
You're going to hit a brick wall.
Okay, now let me bring up a little point here, and I'm going to get into the need to be right. I don't want to, but I'm going to bring up a point. We talk a lot about single-pointed focus in order to master something that we're working on to achieve our goals. So how do we eliminate the need to be right while using single-pointed focus?
I don't think those two really need to be put together, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because when I think about single-pointed focus, that is mission-driven.
Oh, great.
So that's like a goal, I'm going to go do this, right? This is my mission. When you talk about that's the single-pointed focus. Where the need to be right gets to be a problem is when it becomes, I'm going to do this way.
So eliminating the need to be right and holding single pointed focus can really create some excellence.
Yeah, you hold, like, I'm going there.
I'm going there no matter what I have to do. I'm going to be so max flex, so like flexible. I am going to have my eyes open. I'm going to have like amazing perception and just be like water.
That lets you be,
that water flowing down a mountain finds its way, right? It's just going, it finds its way all the way down.
All the way down to the ocean.
Exactly.
Like one way or the other, it's finding
there.
its way, right? And it might take some weird twists and turns this is what I see is when the need to be right really shows up a lot around the how. Like, I need to do it this way.
Yeah.
In business, that your product or whatever that thing is that you want to sell that's so freaking cool that everybody needs, like, dude, if people don't want that,
right,
you can destroy a business trying to push that to people
right,
in a certain way, right? Or it might be the packaging of that. Maybe you do have the coolest thing ever, except that it needs to be communicated to them in a different way so that they can, get excited about it and buy it, right? If it's a product or if it's a service or whatever it is, if they need, so if you get stuck in your language around it, if you get stuck in the thing itself and saying like, this is what everybody needs, and then just like, not getting off of that so that you can continue to grow and thrive and serve people where they're at, serve your audience where they're at. So in business, it can be really, really tricky around those things.
Right.
And you see it, and I think in management as well, of like, this is it. This is the way it's supposed to be, or this is the way we've always done it. That's a big one.
That's a big need to be right. Anybody heard that out there? Like, sound familiar? This is the way we've always done it.
This is just the way we've always done it. It's like danger, danger, Will Robinson. Like, that's a big red flag. This is just the way well, why?
Yeah.
Right. Like, those questions behind that, like, why? Like, tell me more about that.
I mean, think about it. If that person who ran the first, 4-minute mile never busted out of their need to be right, no one would be running 4-minute miles.
That's right. But as soon as he did it, all of a sudden, so many other people started to break that barrier. They started to see that it's possible. And so that breaking the barriers of what your mind is telling you is possible is really, really important.
Really important.
I think it's whether it's in the world, but this is a principle that definitely applies to both the external world, like what we're doing in the world, our work, our life, our parenting, our relationships, like whatever, and also to our internal world, our spiritual growth, because you're getting stuck in like,
the need to be right in the spiritual world just creates spiritual attachment, which is the most dangerous attachment.
Yeah, that's the worst one ever.
That's the worst one.
Yeah.
Need to be right.
Like, you need to be right that my God is the only God, or you need to be right that, mine is the only way. And you need to be right, Jesus, Buddha, whatever it is, that's the only way, and that's cool if that works for you. But what about some of the things that you may not be seeing just because that's the only thing that you're looking at.
Right. So I know we have some questions answered, but I want to ask and ponder this. The need to be right in relationships. How does that show up?
Well,
like the relationship is only going to be successful or connected if we do X, Y, and Z, or if my partner acts this way. Or the relationship is only going to work if he or she does this.
Yeah. Well, this is interesting that you bring this up. We actually had somebody write in and say, hey, I'd love if you guys did an episode on relationships.
Which we will be doing.
It's just something that always comes up. Like it just always comes up.
Well, the world is, our lives are based on relationships of all different kinds.
I guess I'm a little surprised by that. I was, not anymore, but when we first really started this business, working with people in this way, that I was surprised at how many relationship things came up, and I've just seen it time and time again that there's always something there. So, and the need to be right's got a big part to do with it. Like I need to be right that she only or he only loves me if he does the dishes for me, or I need to be right that, she loves me if she cooks for me, or like, I don't know, like whatever.
Or the need to be right that we'll only have a good relationship if we have date night every week.
Yeah.
I mean, have date night because you want it.
Yeah.
It's fun. But to have that underlying belief that somehow it's not going to work out, or the need to be right that the only way the marriage is going to work if we have kids. Oh, that's a painful one.
Please don't have kids if that's
the need to be right.
That's not the worst, but that's one of the worst reasons to have a kid, in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's really tricky in relationships when you get stuck in that, because that's where, when you dig your heels in. In an intimate relationship,
there's no flow. There's no receptivity,
and like there's. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but there's nowhere to go.
Yeah,
unless you're getting out of that relationship.
Yeah,
like that's the person.
You're just going to sink deeper into the quicksand.
Yeah, you're just going to dig deeper into that until somebody apologizes and everybody's okay until the next time, right? But that's a pattern that'll continue to repeat as long as that need to be right, like around whatever it is there.
Right.
I need to be right that he's going to be a certain way. He's going to be pissed, because of this and that. Like, and then it's like you need to be right that, he's going to say no,
right.
or she's going to say no to whatever it is, but you get into that kind of like assumption. And I think, for me, that brings us to one of the best solutions. And if you haven't read it, there's a book called The 4 Agreements.
Oh yeah, great book.
Great book.
Great book.
Awesome book. I've read it several times. He actually came out with another one called the 5th Agreement. He covers the 4 agreements, then he added another one.
That's probably going to be like 10 more.
I hope so. I mean, maybe 5 more. It'd be like the 10 agreements. It'll be like the new commandments.
Yeah.
But they're awesome. Like they're great.
Yeah, it's phenomenal teachings.
And number 3 is don't make assumptions.
Oh yeah.
So that just that one can make such a huge difference.
It sort of dissolves the need to be right.
Yeah.
Immediately. Don't assume.
Don't assume anything. Just be curious.
Don't assume. Right? Don't assume they're right. Don't assume they're wrong. Don't assume you're right. Don't assume something has to go like this or that.
He says, let me just read from the book. Don't make assumptions. Making assumptions is just looking for trouble because most assumptions are not the truth. They're fiction. One big assumption we make is that everything in our virtual reality is the truth. Another big assumption that we make is that everyone else's virtual reality is the truth. So we're assuming that our reality is the truth, and then we're assuming that their reality is the truth too. Like whatever they're telling us. And likely none of that's true. I thought you'd dig that because of the whole virtual reality. Yeah. She's like lighting up over here. And then he goes on to talk about, how to use awareness and imagination. And he talks about imagination in this conversation. And that's a really important part of it because, to put yourself in the other person's shoes. To try to see like, oh, I wonder like how that person, that breaks you out of your need to be right, that they're a certain way.
Right.
But then again, you don't want to get trapped that way either around assuming that this is where they're coming from, but you can explore some different perspectives. And that's where I think the creativity aspect becomes really important, right? Objectivity, to just be like, I don't know. I'm not going to assume anything. Let me just get curious and ask some questions so that we can be clear together. Like that's a game changer.
It's a game changer because when we start assuming that we know what someone else is thinking or doing, what happens? We get entangled. And then there goes that twisted energetic pattern and the hooks. And all of a sudden we're in some drama that we probably don't want.
Right. Right, exactly. And this made me think of another analogy as well, is the 5 men and the elephant, right? So,
Oh, yeah.
so there's an elephant, right? There's a big old elephant there, and there's 5 blind men. And they come upon this elephant and they start like touching the elephant to see like, dude, what is this thing, right? And they all have a radically different perspective on it.
Right.
The guy is up against the side and he's like, it's like a wall, which I guess it would be, right?
If you're like leaning against an elephant.
Yeah, of course.
Or the leg. You know?
And the guy who's at the trunk is like, no, it's like a rope, or a snake. No, he's like, it's like a snake. And then the guy who's at the tail is like, no, it's like a rope. And then the guy who's at the ear is like, it's like a fan, and they're all like, they're arguing with each other. Like, no, it's like this. It's like this. It's like, well, you're all looking at the same thing from a radically different perspective. And when you get into the need to be right about that, that's where you dig in your heels, and that's where you create massive conflict.
Yes.
So like being creative around that is like, oh, like that's that somebody else has got a different perspective. Like, let me check that out. Let me ask some questions around that so that I can understand that a little bit better. That keeps you into that creative mindset. And I think that aspect of creativity is just so important.
And you know what? Two things coming to me. The first one is, think about how much we miss out on from someone else, their beauty, their creativity, something that's really exquisite about them, because we're focused on a need to be right, that they're a certain way. And even with a person we don't like, if we're really open and we get the need to be right out of the way, we're going to see something really fascinating in that human, because every human is fascinating.
Right.
So think about what we could be missing out on. Now, the other thing, because I'm thinking, how do we leave everybody so that we're not going down the rabbit hole of, am I being the need to be right or not? There's something, again, back to the classic Vedanta teachings. There's this word called sakshi, and it means to be a witness. And of course, here we go, Swami Parthasarathy. Again, I remember one lecture he gave. He's like, just watch life as if it's a movie. Don't get entangled. Don't judge. Don't assume. Just observe. Like you're in a balcony and you're watching the streets, or you're at the theater and you're watching the movie go on and on.
Yeah, the movie analogy is great because, if you go to, like, you might cry at a movie. Like you feel the emotions. Like that's why you go. But at the end of the day, you walk out of that theater and your life is good.
Yeah. You're not entangled. There's no, So the other thing that comes to me too is, for those of you that have experienced, accessing your full potential self, talking to your higher self, when you're in that place, like, is it so or isn't it so? Take a moment and just ask your higher self. Like, the clearer you are and the more you practice this, the more information you will get. We all have this Wi-Fi to source, God, universe, universal mind, whatever you want to call it. We have this connection, but when we're not listening, like say we have the need to be right, that there's no way we're going to get a download from the universe, we'll never get it. So the more we're just asking, the louder and stronger the direct message will be.
Yeah. Yep.
Just like I did. So the need to be right was, well, that guy's awesome. He's got his thing going. And like you were saying, Nick, like, well, maybe I need to change my language marketing a little bit. But at the end of the day, this is what I'm here to do. So I'm going to experiment with a couple different ways to get it out there and see what resonates and how I can serve people the best.
Yeah. And I think it's important, like that full awareness of, you know what, he might be right. Right. He very well might be right. And that's cool too. Right.
That's cool.
But that's not going to stop you from finding your way there, and doing it.
Yeah.
So I don't want anybody, you bring up a good point. Like, I don't want anybody to get stuck in like paralysis by analysis and just like meditating in their head all day of like, I don't know, am I right?
It or isn't it?
Maybe I don't know. But like, that's not healthy at all. But that constant questioning behind it, not to create self-doubt, but really to create more resiliency and more flexibility in your thinking. That says like, I wonder, when you really, like, if you've just been doing something the same way forever.
Yeah.
It could be just the way that you drive to work.
Yeah, exactly.
I used to do that all the time. And then somebody told me about, like, when I was driving from, the suburbs downtown in Detroit, like I had my certain way that I went. And then somebody was like, oh, do you know about this way? And I'm like, no, I don't know about that way. And you'd go take that way. And lo and behold, it's like less traffic or less potholes, and it's, a better ride or just different scenery. Like you get to look at things from a different perspective and staying in that kind of openness and creative flow. Like that's really kind of gets back to that episode we did on staying in yes.
Right.
Where you're continuing to stay in yes rather than like, no, I need to be right,
Yeah. Explore. Just explore. Life is awesome.
So don't make assumptions. Stay creative. Stay flexible. And keep exploring and being curious. Keep exploring.
Yeah. Beautiful. Awesome.
So that's the cliff notes of the need to be right. It's actually a really deep topic.
It is very deep. Yeah. I mean, the best way is just to keep looking inward, just keep looking, observing, and try and be that witness that just steps out of your body and watches you. Am I doing that?
But you know what I do want to say before we close out this part of it is that this is one thing that if you can actually resolve or move the needle on for you, this makes a radical shift in your life.
It really does. It really, really does.
Because it is everywhere. Like it
resolves and dissolves so many things.
It's in every area. It's in your money. It's in your relationships. It's in your spirituality, like in one way, shape, or form. It's in all these things, whether you think it or not. It's there somewhere because everybody, I've never encountered a human that doesn't have this, that hasn't done like super substantial work on it. But if you can move the needle on this, man, does it make a huge difference.
So many other things. Yeah.
Like
life
major stress relief.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
So I just want to throw that out there because I think that's important.
Yeah. And email us any questions, info@sourcemovement.com. And speaking of questions.
Yeah. Would love to continue the questions on that one for sure as questions come up. But moving on, questions. So want to thank so many people for sending in different questions and participating. We got some ideas for some different topics that people would like to hear about. And so we're planning some future episodes around that. But this is a new segment and super excited to just dive into it. So the first question we got here is really just on the chakras. So I'd love more on chakras 8 through 15 and a better understanding of morphogenetic and harmonic energy systems, etc. And so this is an interesting question. So for people out there, this is just my 2 cents first, and because I know that you have more to share on this, but my 2 cents on this is why I'm not a fan of numbering systems, is because there are a lot of systems out there. The systems that we use are very specific. And when you can just put a name on them rather than a number, I think it helps to keep things in better order. And it also helps create more clarity as to the function of these things. So that being said.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like the numbers, but that's, here we go. I need to be right on the chakras. Well, let me so this is something I'll just say a few words about because we go into this deeply in our trainings. The morphogenetic field is a field around us. And basically chakras, if you've ever heard this word chakras, they're the sort of the vortex to vital life force energy.
They're like energy clearinghouses.
They bring in vital life force energy. I love chakras. We need our chakra system to be cleared and decongested and balanced because disease does not happen in the body overnight. So most people, maybe you go to yoga class or you've heard them talk about your heart chakra or your throat chakra. Most people focus on the 7 embodied chakras, straight down the pranic tube from crown, third eye, the throat, the heart, the solar plexus, sacral, and the root. And then as Nick said, in the systems of healings that he does, there's some other chakras in different names. Now, there's also magnetic chakras in your left hand. There's so many other chakras.
Yeah, the hands and feet are actually really important.
Yeah, really important. Now, these 8 morphogenetic chakras that our listeners asking about, these are some of the chakras that we actually share with the earth. So there's a grid in the earth at the center of the earth. That's a chakra we share with the earth. There's a chakra in space that we share. There's some around us. I just bring it back to this. It's like your form holding blueprint. It's your field. And what this means is you are so much bigger than you know. There's so much more to you than your body. right? So you can touch your arm, you can feel your arm, like, oh, here's my body. It's good, it's strong, or maybe you want to gain a few pounds or lose a few pounds. I'm talking about what's around you. And the most basic way to explain this is if you've been at a party and someone walks in the room and all of a sudden you turn around and you're like, who is that? Like for some reason I have to talk to that person. Or vice versa, you're like, ooh, something feels funny, I'm out of here. That's a person's field. So the resiliency, the clarity, the health of our field, whether it's our 7 embodied chakras, our mental, emotional energy fields, our etheric energy field, our 8 morphogenetic chakras and more, it is just important to keep our energy clean. So rather than get really stuck on what they all are and the names and where they are, clarity, observation, and really being meticulous with our choices, because at the end of the day, when we have negativity, whether it's in our field, in our body, it comes from a choice. So being meticulous, supremely meticulous with our choices is the best way to begin to create that resiliency.
Right. And that's a great point. And getting out of the need to be right so that you can be clear to make a choice, a really conscious choice. That's very important. If it's okay, I'd like to add just a couple.
Well, please do.
Couple little things on this. One of the things that we see, or that I've seen anyway, is that this misunderstanding or the need to be right, that I can't move forward if I'm not clear.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So it's the need to be right that, I have some kind of blockage. And so now I can't move forward until I clear this. And then you spend like all this like time, like doing all these things to clear and yada, yada, yada. And then you're not like actually not doing stuff in the world. Like, don't do that.
Yeah. It feels good to have some sort of spiritual attachment or mental indulgence or processes, but we're in the world. Like, so we have to take action in the world. So I'm all about clearing and doing whatever, but be in the world and take action and serve.
Yeah. You're here to do something, and action is the insignia of life.
Yes.
So you require to be in action in the world, and that's super important.
Right.
So the energetic clearings are awesome because they help you to be more effective in that.
Right.
They help you to do it in a way that's more congruent with your soul and your soul purpose. But at the end of the day, you can still get great results in the world, even if you're blocked and you have, some things, right? It just might not feel really good to you and it might not be congruent with who you are, but don't let that stop you from taking action.
Right.
In fact, taking action, like that was our last episode, right? Powerful action.
Powerful action.
As you take powerful action, that is one of the things that will help to bring up the stuff that needs to be resolved.
Exactly.
So it keeps you in the flow and it keeps everything moving faster. Whereas if you just sit around and do like 5 hours of clearings every day or something like that, and you don't really do anything in the world, that's actually going to take you longer, and you're going to get stuck in your mind around that stuff, and it's not healthy.
Right. And you'll end up having this, what's the word? Well, being tamasic.
Tamasic. Yeah, we're actually going to get to that next.
It's the lead. Tamasic is like being indolent, lazy, just not taking action. So tamasic is one of those qualities that can happen. Now someone wrote in and asked about what?
The question, this is a great question, actually. I'd love to hear a little bit more about sattvic hours. You introduced it in the Extreme Enlightenment podcast. That was a really popular episode. It's awesome. And it struck me that I have woken between 4 and 5 a.m. several times in the past week. A couple of the mornings, I coaxed myself back to sleep, telling myself I should get more rest.
Yeah.
However, 2 of the mornings, I decided to get up and journal and work on my new venture. Awesome. And it was wonderful. And I thought I might need a midday nap, but I didn't.
Isn't that amazing?
It's so
Bust
cool.
through those limiting beliefs and the need to be right, that if I get up at 4:30, I'm going to have to sleep later.
Yeah, that's definitely we'll definitely get to that.
Yeah.
But first is to break this down. Her original question is basically just like, what's up with the sattvic hours? Because this seems kind of cool.
Yeah, sattvic hours between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m.
So there's 3 qualities. There's sattvic is one. It's basically a neutral state, right? It's serene, calm.
Serene, tranquil.
there is Rajasic, which is active, you know, like if you put it in like an element that's more like a fire element, you know, you're really active in the world. It can be agitated, right? Attached, you know, those are kind of qualities of the Rajasic nature. And then there's the one that you mentioned is Tamasic, right? And Tamasic is where you like inertia sets in.
Sitting on the sofa watching reruns of Law and Order.
Dang, man, calling me out on the Law and Order. I haven't done that in a really long time.
Years.
It has been years.
That's what it feels like, everyone. I'm sure we've all been there. Maybe not all of you, but I think most people have done those mega days of, I'm going to watch Law and Order.
Well, I don't want to go off on a big tangent here, but I think it was on TBS, and I think they were the ones. That was the first people I ever saw do it, where it was like as the episode was finishing, they go right into the next one, right? So the credits, they push the credits all the way down to the bottom, and then the next episode was starting to just keep you in that loop,
feeding the Tomasi.
Yeah, and now Netflix does it now, like everybody does that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. But when you're stuck in that, like that's the natural time for that. So there's times of the day that are associated with each of these qualities, and the sattvic hours are from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. Now, I've heard it put differently where there's like 2 cycles throughout the day, but quite frankly, I haven't really seen a lot of evidence to back that up. In my life, 4 to 6 a.m. is truly sattvic time. Then from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., that's Rajasic time. So that's like, think about it. You're up, you're active, you know, you're in the world, you're doing your work, you know, you're doing things or not doing things, right? But you're more active and the world is awake, right? And then after that, at 6 p.m. is when things start to wind down.
Happy hour,
right? So and you look at the activities associated with these. Well, 4 and 6 a.m., if somebody's up at that, most people, I'll just go with the most people, maybe not on this podcast, but in general, if a person's up at 4 to 6 a.m., they got a job and they're working or they're doing something, right?
Getting the kids ready or something.
Yeah, it's a truly like unique individual who's up at that time and just really spending their time working on themselves. Jocko is one of them, you know, with his, and he's got a whole following of people with their 4:30 a.m. workouts, right? Which is awesome. But what's cool about sattvic time is that if you want to make a change in your life, like that is the time to do it.
It is.
Your mind is calm. It's serene.
Yes. It's ready. If you want anything to change, you've got to do it between, I'm not going to say you've got to, but 4 to 6 a.m.
Yeah, you're going to have a easier time of it to make those shifts.
There's the Greeks call this, having grown up in the Eastern Orthodox Church, the Greeks call this metanoia, I think is the word. It's like changing something, desire to really change some aspect of yourself will take study, reflection, and early morning prayer.
Right. So it's whatever you want to work on. Like Jocko's following, like they want to work on their bodies. They want to get physical. Like, awesome. I do that after 6 a.m. But do you, like, if you want to make changes in your physicality, that's a great time to do it.
Well, what I love about what our listener, who I know who you are, and it's so awesome to hear from you, a new venture. Like, think about that. Her higher self is actually waking her up and being like, girl, get up, because you got this awesome thing you're creating. And when you work on it during this time, it's going to like embed. It's going to have the most amazing possibility of really taking off and multiplying.
Yeah, that is so, I mean, I just think that's so
listen.
Cool.
When your higher self wakes you up, get up and listen. I know it's cozy. I know it feels good, but if you really need that nap, you'll get the nap or you'll figure out something else. But especially for those of you that get that calling early morning, get out of bed.
Yeah, if you're waking up at that time naturally, go for it.
There's something that needs to come up and out of you that will serve many, many humans.
Yeah. Yep. That's really important. But what's interesting here is like, here's the need to be right. Coax yourself back to sleep. I need to get more rest.
I need more rest.
Right? Need to be right that I'm going to be tired. I can't get up this early and not be tired.
My body won't handle it. Your body's going to handle it. Like, you're going to rock it. Go.
Yeah. And I mean, energy like is so abundant.
Right.
Like, you can have access to energy at any time. Yes, your body does need to rest, but you know, clearly it's gotten the rest if it's up and it's ready to go.
Right.
So that's so important. And I can just from my heart, like I just so relate to that.
Yeah.
Like I think we even talked about that, like where it's just like so comfy in bed and it's early and it's kind of chilly. I guess chilly for San Diego is not that chilly, but it gets a little chilly at night. But it's like it's so comfortable there, and the mind will find those little hooks to keep you comfortable.
Yeah.
And those little ways to sabotage. That's just what the mind does.
Yeah.
It's not bad. It's just what the mind does.
It's just what it does.
But when you can come to it and just be like, yeah, I'm up. Like, let's go. Let's give it a try.
So I'm going to give a tip. For those of you that are looking to get up early and do something, have a bottle of really good water. And I say a bottle because you want it closed. You don't want an open glass of water. You want something that's closed. And when you get up, drink it right away.
Yep.
Like really get yourself hydrated, everything, drink it. And then if you're the person that needs to stretch or move or something, move a little bit if you need that. If you're a coffee person, just please drink water before the coffee.
Yeah.
Right.
That's good.
And then find your place, dial it in, and go create, do what you're going to do.
Yeah. That's so powerful. And I just think it's so cool that she's working on a new venture
Right.
at that time. Like you're planting seeds like that. Sattvic time is the time to plant those
Plant
seeds.
the seeds. And you've heard us all, I'm sure, if not, we'll say it again. The Sattvic hours for spiritual growth, for personal growth, this is when you can get some text and read and study and reflect. So basically it's like read 2 paragraphs and reflect on it. Maybe journal about it. It doesn't mean you have to sit down and read a novel. Just read something and absorb it so that throughout your day, you're embodying the wisdom that you took in. So it's not just more and more information. It's like I'm taking these golden nuggets of wisdom. I'm going to embody and integrate and then live from that.
Yeah, just one thing is plenty.
One thing is plenty.
One paragraph is more than enough.
Totally.
Especially the higher quality, the information that you're taking in, that one little piece can really, really sustain you. And that's so important.
So amazing.
So
well, how do
Sattvic time.
people send in questions?
You can email us. That's a great way. info@sourcemovement.com. It's info@sourcemovement.com. You can tweet at us at Source Movement. If you're on the Twitter sphere, please feel free to just tweet us directly. You can also find us on Facebook, but really email is the best.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Nick has been so good about taking everybody's questions, so we will get through them. And some of them are inspiring topics for a future podcast. So thank you.
Look at me, all organized.
Y'all so organized. Yeah.
Yeah, so keep those coming. And regarding the mantra snacks, that's a great reason to just go subscribe. And while you're there, we so appreciate the reviews that we've gotten. They've all been really positive and not even there, but we get emails all the time of people that just are really digging the podcast. And man, we just love you so much, and we so appreciate all your support and listening and sending in your questions. And, if you're in there and you're inspired to write us a review, that'd be awesome. Cause we really appreciate that too. It just helps us to grow and get this message out there. Right. So,
and share it with someone that you think might enjoy it.
Yeah.
All right.
Share it out. So
way to go, everyone. Love you madly. Thank you so much for listening, and a very big namaste.
Peace.